Hello and welcome back to the Growth Junction, the podcast where we interview leaders out of the blockchain, crypto, Bitcoin industry who are shaping the space. I'm Dennis. I've been through 2.5 cycles, crypto cycles, and I've definitely felt the anxiety of the highs and lows in my wallets. Before this, I used to work for marketing agencies, and one of them being a Web3 marketing agency. And today I'm joined by someone who's at the forefront of blockchain real estate, Edward Nwokedi. I hope I didn't butcher that too much. The visionary founder and CEO of Red Swan CRE. At Red Swan, he spearheads a mission to tokenize institutional grade real estate, making it accessible to broader pool of investors. Ed's work is at Red Swan is all about democratizing investment opportunities, basically. Ed, welcome to the show. Why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself and a little bit about your background?
Good morning, Dennis, and thank you for allowing me to be here. It's always good to be able to broadcast about the benefits of tokenization. I'm Ed Nwokedi. I'm the founder and CEO of Red Swan CRE. And Red Swan is a blockchain company that fractionalizes real estate into digital securities. We've been doing this since 2018, and we've tokenized quite a bit of property, but we're just getting started. It's a huge market, and we're extremely excited about it. So once again, thank you for letting me be here.
Awesome. Yeah, and thanks for joining us. It's always an honor. So I'll start with our main questions, and then we have a little bit follow-ups on that in the end. So first question is, I noticed there's a long FAQ section on the Red Swan website. So as I was going through that, I was wondering what the most common questions and doubts people have when it comes to investing in real estate using blockchain technology.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of FAQs because there's quite a bit of a process in terms of onboarding customers to allow them to buy. And the onboarding usually makes sure that they go through a KYC process. And U.S. citizens actually have to be accredited investors in order to partake. But I think the most common misconception is that they believe that the real estate that we're selling are some sort of cryptocurrency. I think that people confuse blockchain. They hear the word blockchain, they automatically think about cryptocurrency, and that's very far from the reality. Reality is that we're selling asset-backed tokens. Security tokens is the definition, STOs, and basically that is the representation of a stock. Just think about real estate as IPOing a piece of real estate and issuing shares so they all have ownership. That's exactly what tokenization for real estate does. So I think that's how we can, debunk that myth that it's cryptocurrency. We do accept stable coins, USDC or USDT, as a form of payment or a wire or even credit card, but we don't swap cryptocurrency. We don't sell cryptocurrency or issue cryptocurrency on our platform. That's the biggest misconception.
Yeah, I can imagine that being a big red flag for people thinking, oh no, is this a scam even perhaps or something like this? So thanks for clarifying that.
It's a new concept, so people are uncomfortable. But I think that was early stage in the early years of 2018, 2020. People were kind of confused. I think now that you're seeing a lot of talk about RWA, people understand what they're getting into now. It's a much different environment.
Yeah. All right. So Red Swan's mission is to democratize commercial real estate. And what was for you the aha moment? Was it a specific deal or conversation that convinced you that tokenization was the key to unlocking this vision?
I tell this story a lot because it was the aha moment. I spent 18 years at Cushman Wakefield in capital markets. So I was executive director of capital markets, which means I did a lot of transactions of buying and selling commercial real estate. And I had a phone call from a previous CTO of a company that I founded in California who told me I need to go to a blockchain conference. And all I knew about blockchain, of course, was Bitcoin. And I told him I was not interested in that, didn't want to go to the conference, but he begged me to attend this conference, saying that it wasn't about Bitcoin. He thinks the technology would be something I'd be interested in. So just based on my faith in him, we worked together very closely in this previous company. I decided to take a plane trip to Dallas and go to this blockchain conference and not really pay attention to the speakers who were out there talking about Bitcoin and what they're doing with blockchain, but actually went to the exhibit hall where you had companies showcasing what they're doing. And that was very, very inspiring to see how they were using blockchain technology in a fractional way, fractionalizing different types of assets, different types of use cases. And the aha moment was, wow, uh, this would definitely be a benefit for real estate, because all my career, we've been selling real estate to just major corporations who can write checks, $20 million checks, $40 million checks, but never to the common investor. And so that was what came to my mind, is that if we could take a piece of real estate and divide it into a number of shares, and they'd be able to issue it on a affordable basis, that would be a much better situation for the entire industry. And then I would say it was about 2 weeks later, which really impacted my decision to switch over to tokenization. The SEC in the United States banned the ICOs. There were like initial coin offerings that were just going rampant. They banned that, but at the same time, they authorized use of STOs, security token offerings. And I said, huh. So the SEC is behind security token offerings, and they see that as a way forward, as opposed to the crypto ICOs. And that let me know that this is going to be the legal parameter for capital markets going forward, really early stage. And I realized that it's a good time now to transition out of traditional real estate and go into digital real estate, which is when I founded Red Swan Digital and moved forward.
Awesome, awesome. So you've seen real estate evolve over many years. What's the most surprising trend that you've observed in how investors, especially smaller ones, are approaching properties today?
Smaller investors are not necessarily the most savvy because they haven't had a lot of experience investing in commercial real estate. They might have had experience buying single family homes, buying smaller pieces of real estate. But when you start looking at large real estate office buildings, multifamily properties, there are many moving parts that you have to pay attention to, and also market forces you have to pay attention to. And so I feel that many of them were not really equipped to buy real estate, so a little bit apprehensive. But as the Jobs Act, which was passed in 2012, started progressing, you started seeing companies out there fractionalizing the LP shares of real estate and allowing people to come in at lower allocations. And we started seeing that really grow. I was at Cushman Wakefield selling properties, and I just remember that crowdfunding was started off at 5% of the capital stack. Then it became 10%. Then it became up to 25%, which means that there's a lot of small investors who were willing to pay $25,000 to $50,000 to get into a Class A type of commercial real estate. And that really surprised the industry. And I think that today we're seeing even more of that not just those sophisticated investors who are what you call high net worth, but also smaller investors, the next gen investors, are interested in getting involved. And that's one of the things that Red Swan is focused on right now, is really educating the next gen. That demographic is going to be inheriting quite a bit of capital over the next 10 years in terms of wealth transfer. And it's really important that they know how to invest in real estate, even at a fractional level, because, when you're talking about investing or inheriting, hundreds of trillions of dollars over the next, couple of decades, they're going to be the ones in power. And so we want to focus on demographic and show them how to make choices, what factors to look at, and then also think about how to finance their investment in real estate. For example, people who are these young kids now have a lot of cryptocurrency. They have Bitcoin, they have Ethereum, and they're watching that go up and down because of all volatility, and they're probably a little bit upset about that. But if they wanted to stabilize that volatility, they could actually lock in the value of, say, Bitcoin at 100,000 and buy or invest into a real estate project that they might put $1 million into or $500,000 into. And if that project is paying 9% interest, for example, yield annually, and the borrowing cost for them to borrow against their Bitcoin is 7%, well, they're now locking in that Bitcoin at $100,000. They're buying a piece of real estate with that that's worth worth whatever they've invested in, would be 100,000 or $500,000, and is now generating yield at 9%, which gives them enough cash flow to pay off the interest that they're borrowing and still have a positive arbitrage of 2% that they can also use to buy more Bitcoin or Ethereum. Mm-hmm. So these are smart strategies that we want to teach the next gen in order to continue their growth of wealth over the next couple decades.
Right. Awesome. So would you say that's one of your biggest target market, the younger generation?
That is, the key target market where we're putting a lot of our advertising dollars. Well, of course, we're also putting our time and my professional time attracting institutional investors because they write bigger checks, and we still think that moves the needle much faster. There's about $30 trillion worth of real estate managed by bigger institutions, and so getting to know them, getting to help them transition from analog to digital is a smart strategy for Red Swan and for anybody else. And then talk to the younger generation because it's such a big population. So you start putting those two together. We think that'll be good for our overall business.
Awesome. So what would you say if there's one thing that is the most attractive to traditional real estate investors in terms of blockchain and tokenization?
The one benefit that's most attractive, I believe, is liquidity. Liquidity is the source of the flywheel. Without liquidity, you can't continue to buy other assets. And today's market is a great example of that. Investors have bought billions of dollars, not trillions of dollars, of the real estate over the past 3 years at low interest rates. Right, interest rates were at 3%, so they can buy at a 4 cap or 4.5 cap and feel like they still have some positive arbitrage. Well, when interest rates popped up to 5 and 6%, and cap rates also jumped up, that means real estate values have come down, and now they can't get out of their assets. They can't sell because the price that they were planning on forecasted on selling is much higher, and the real reality with the new interest rates, the price is much lower, so they can't get out, which makes their investors a little bit upset because they planned on being in this investment for 3 to 5 years. Now they might have to wait for another 5 years before interest rates get to an attractive level where they can actually sell. So having the ability to get liquidity right now is really the key to keep the flywheel moving, because now that they can sell even part of their equity out, even for a little bit of a discount, and still own the asset to continue to ride it up during better times, that fresh powder allows them to buy more assets at a lower price, where we are today. So I think liquidity is the key benefit. But the other benefit is the global market of investors. Typically you get your money when you're raising capital right from your backyard. The high net worth investors, the family offices that are interested in real estate. So you go to them and they typically invest. But I think that here in the United States, we've exhausted a lot of our local domestic investment base, whether it be institutional or high net worth. But when you look at the landscape of international investors, it's much larger arena. And I think sometimes there's stronger cases for them investing in the United States, which means they might pay a higher price based on their needs than what you're looking at, more, here in the United States, they might have more professional needs of investing, which means they have to get this price point, otherwise they're not interested. But if you go overseas, you might find pension funds that are in Africa and different countries in Africa who are just trying to get a stable dollar-backed yield, right? So it could be 4%, 3%, but it's better than losing 15 or 20%. So I think opening up the arena to international markets is another major benefit for tokenization. And then, and the many, I could talk about many, but those probably are two key points that people, or at least real estate owners, are very excited about.
Cool, very cool. So you have tokenized about 9 billion in assets. What's your next big milestone, and how do you see Red Swan evolving in the next 5 years?
Well, we've got to keep tokenizing because nothing happens until assets are on chain, right? So you can't talk about secondary market, you can't talk about really transactions until owners have made the decision to transition their assets onto the blockchain, which gives them these different benefits. So our goal is to continue transitioning billions of dollars of assets onto the blockchain, make them accessible in form of funds as well as individual investments, because we find their audience of private or retail investors are more interested in funds because it's easier for them to comprehend the type of yield and also the reduce the risk. Otherwise, if we give them a choice of 50 assets to invest in, our phone is ringing all day of which assets we be putting our money into. Would be one, two, three, or and so that takes up a lot of time. But if you can give them a blended portfolio like a REIT of investments where they're buying into apartments or a mixed use of apartments, hospitality, or office, and give them a single yield that they can hold on to as an average, that makes it easier for them to put their money in, just like it is much easier to put your money into a money market fund or a treasury because it's just a plain basic payment every period. I think that's one reason why we're using funds. But also, I think that you're going to see more use cases of investments like I talked about, where you're actually using cryptocurrency to kind of balance out portfolio. So we see a huge opportunity in real estate, trillions of dollars worth of real estate going on chain in the next 5 years. And we think that's just going to change the landscape of the way business is done traditionally for real estate.
Right, very interesting. So, what do you base this vision on? Have you seen the growth curve until now is really accelerating?
Yeah, the demand is accelerating. So, it's easier for me now to talk to a customer, property owner, and convince them that they should tokenize their assets because they've been hearing stories from people like Larry Fink of BlackRock talk about it and actually start tokenizing a lot of financial instruments. They're understanding the benefits that seems like there's a no lose proposition to tokenizing because you can always remain the same as a traditional position if that's the case. But if you do tokenize, you're just adding additional opportunities. So we're seeing more companies request to tokenize. We've seen more institutions calling us for advice on how to set up a strategy for tokenization. These are large institutions because they want to make sure that they don't miss out. And then we're seeing a strong demand from investors. I mean, we started to, poll our investors on our platform. If you log in, you'll see that you can express interest on different projects that we're offering. Those expressed interests range from 600 million to almost $1 billion individually, saying I want $20,000 on this or $10,000 on that, and that really woke us up to realize that the retail audience is very keen on buying. But then on the same level, we're seeing institutional investors from around the world telling us that they want to buy a certain type of product. I just got an order a year saying, I need housing for hospitals and workers in the Middle East. And this is a major institution that wants to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in this. We just so happen to have about $3.5 billion worth of assets in the Middle East. So I'm trying to match that up. But you're getting these types of requests now from institutions where before, they didn't even understand what it was to make that kind of request. So I think the market has changed. And I think people now are trying to figure out how they can be the leader in a certain vertical of real estate. Whereas, because they had that opportunity to jump in early. And think about it. If they were able to jump in and buy fractional shares and the other competitors are not jumping in and don't have fractional shares and don't have liquidity, this particular company could start gaining market share because they're moving faster. They're getting liquidity faster. They can exit faster. So that's a strategic advantage over companies that don't do that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the tsunami of blockchain is already happening, I guess, but it's just gonna happen even more and even quicker. Um, so the magic wand question. If you could wave a magic wand and partner with any company or industry to accelerate Red Swan's growth, maybe in tech, finance, or media, what would it be and why?
Ah, questions. There's a lot of companies I would love to partner with, but I think if we're looking at strategic partnerships that helps us to move the needle faster, I would say that if like CBRE were partnered with Red Swan, they have access to hundreds of thousands of real estate owners who have access to trillions of dollars of real estate. Um, I think that introduction between them introducing us to their clients who want to tokenize our assets will give us, a continuous flow of business, which is important, but also we think it would enhance, CBRE's ability to now get into the game of tokenization and selling digital assets as well. So that increases their revenue stream because that's an offering that right now they can't provide. And
Mhm.
so we look at that as a strategic partnership. Also, a company like Charles Schwab would be another, good strategic partner. They have trillions of dollars of assets under management. They sell a lot of shares to their investors. Their investors trust their guidance. So plugging in our offerings to a Charles Schwab will open up their offerings to a much wider base, and of course, let us expand globally based on the kind of products we have to the market. So that keeps our flywheel, turning by having content and distribution. So
Mhm. Cool. So what I know you touched on it already, but what kind of trends do you see in the market, and how do you see, or how is this making it easier or maybe harder for you to operate?
trends in the market, I see technology growing rapidly. Um, I see the pieces of the puzzle coming together to make it simpler for people to do business. To talk about blockchain and tokenization, it seems very nebulous in terms of a process. How do you do that? What does that mean? What do I have? What am I holding on to? Everybody has these questions. But if you can take a Web3 process and make it as simple as a Web2 process, just click, 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 and it's done, that's the overall end game. And I think there's a lot of companies who are working to make that happen. So, for example, Apple letting you have your digital wallet in your Apple iPhone, right? That makes it much easier for you to store your digital assets safely in an iPhone that you use every day. So I think that's coming down the pipeline, interoperability between different blockchains. So no matter what you mint your tokens on, you can still communicate as if you were just having $1 that's going to spread around the world. So a lot of technology is being developed to enhance the usability of blockchain, and I think also AI is influencing the business as well. We use AI right now for customer suitability. So if you come on our platform, the first thing you're doing is being introduced to an AI agent who's going to interview you live and ask you questions, understand what your level of investment is going to be and what your experience level for investments are, and also your qualifications in terms of accredited investors or not. Once that's done, that's stored in your profile. Every time you come back, this AI agent is going to greet you, see if there's any updated changes, but eventually start making recommendations based on your customer preference. So that's the future of the business. It's all automated. And I think that's what the next gen also is accustomed to experience.
Yeah, that's crazy. But very cool, very cool. So since everything is growing, do you also see the competition getting harsher, or do you have more and more players coming into the market?
They are, but I don't look at them as competition. When you see a $75 trillion global market, that's a lot to absorb for any company. So we think competition is actually cooperative colleagues, because the more they advertise, they're spreading the gospel of how good tokenization is to investors. They're also bringing on new types of product on chain, which makes it more viable. So no, we welcome competition. We don't worry about competition. We think that it's a big market, and if they can come on and claim some market share, we're going to do the same. It just helps, give more wind underneath our wings, so we can soar higher.
Right, that's an awesome way to look at it. Not as a threat or competition, but everybody's getting a piece of the big cake anyhow.
No
So
one can eat it all.
yeah. What do you do on a daily basis? You mentioned just now that you're using AI and automation, and but what do you do on a daily basis at Red Swan?
I try to keep looking forward to the future and looking out for how we can enhance our offerings and enhance our business. So I'm always thinking about content creation, where I'm going to get the content. I fly around the world and talk about tokenization at various events. I meet property owners. Like I said, I was just in Australia and met with some big developers and family offices there. And so, you plant seeds in certain places and they start to sprout, especially in different countries, because that gives you, if I could open up Middle East, which we are, that's, trillions of dollars for the properties in Middle East. If I can open up Canada, which we're getting a license, that opens up, another great marketplace. Africa is a huge market. We opened an office there, and we're really trying to strategically find partnerships that are the kind of risk level that we're really comfortable with. So my job is really to have a forward-looking position on the company and make sure we fill in the gaps.
Mm-hmm. So what's your goal then in the next 12 months and beyond?
Next 12 months. Well, we are just trying to continue to raise capital. I think that in order to scale faster, we need more working capital so we can hire more people. So it's always been a balancing act to take the capital that we've raised, maintain it so we're not overspending, but yet making forward progress with the growth. But if we can take on more capital in our next raise, we think that would take us to the point where we become self-sufficient. We don't need any more capital. We don't need to go public. We can just continue to expand the business. So right now we're raising some capital. We're bringing on strategic partners. We're just filling the gaps, areas where you can sustain the business. Businesses can fail quickly if you don't prop them up in the right areas. And so I've learned to prop the business up in the right areas so that we can't fail. I mean, that we have it'd be very difficult to fail because it's not just Red Swan that's moving forward. There's so many other partnerships that are holding us up and pushing us forward as well. So that's kind of what I think of the next 12 months is, that continue to support the business, build the business slowly. We're bringing on a lot of young blood, a lot of next gen employees who are outthinking our senior management, because, like I said, it's their world that we're trying to move into. So we might as well use their manpower and their brain power to figure out how to get there, as opposed to bringing on, baby boomers who have the old way of thinking and try to use that, force that on the younger generation. I don't think that's the right way to do it. So a lot of work. A lot of very exciting right now.
Cool. So before we wrap this up, what's the easiest way to get started with this kind of asset investment or this? Yeah.
I think first of all, establish a platform so you have a website where people can come. I think there's all kinds of technology you can license, so you don't have to build it yourself. It's already there. You just have to weave together the right technologies that work, together synergistically, and know how to find properties. I mean, it doesn't have to be huge properties. It can be small properties. It can be beachfront hotels. I mean, it can be anything that you really are excited about. But I think once you get that platform and you start showing interesting assets that people can invest in, and you license the technology that get them from A to Z, and also you get your SEC license, because you can't sell a security without a license. So that should be on your roadmap as a primary target. But yeah, I think once you have that, you now have people who are going to be visiting your site, looking at your various offerings, and you're going to start turning the wheel and making some sales.
Right. Awesome. Thank you so much for this, all these insights, Ed. Um, please tell people where they can find you, Red Swan, social medias, and all of that.
Yeah, Red Swan, www.redswan.io. My LinkedIn handle, just put Ed Nwokedi, at Ed Nwokedi, LinkedIn. That's where I answer most of my communication on social media. Um, and that's probably good enough. When you get to our website, you'll see us, and you need to reach us through info at Red Swan. We'll be answering the questions, but if you have a direct question for me, I think LinkedIn is probably the best place for me to respond.
Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, and I can attest to that. You respond on social media. So, all right. Thank you guys for tuning in, for watching. If you found value, then please, you know the deal, subscribe and share and all of that. Um, until next time, keep curious, keep building, and yeah, see you next time. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Dennis. Take care.
Bye bye. Take care.